Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I met Vanessa in early fall. I remember that because the leaves had just started turning, and I was spending most weekends hiking with my buddy Ryan. I was in a good place, working remotely for a software company, newly moved into a quiet rental just outside of Cincinnati, and finally ready to date again after a long, boring breakup. I wasn't even looking for anything serious when I matched with her. Her profile was full of sarcasm, selfies with her dog, and one of those "if you like pineapple on pizza, keep swiping" bios. She had this energy in her texts that pulled me in, playful, confident, a little unfiltered. Our first date was at a local bar, and we clicked fast. I remember thinking she was different in a good way. For the first week or so, it felt like I was in one of those early relationship montages. Texts nonstop, late-night calls, spontaneous meetups. Vanessa talked a lot, fast and without filters, but it was charming at first. She joked that I was too quiet for my own good, which was fair. I've always been more of an observer, but little things started to feel off. Once I was 5 minutes late replying to a message and she texted, "What, you texting other girls now?" I laughed it off, thinking she was being sarcastic. She'd follow up with LOL or "just kidding," but it didn't always land like a joke. Then she'd get super affectionate again, saying she'd never felt this close to anyone, that I understood her in a way no one else had. It was around week 3 that the mood shifts started getting harder to ignore. She came over one night with takeout, and when I asked her if she wanted to watch something specific, she said, "Why? So you can text your little friends during it?" I remember blinking, confused, because my phone had been face down the entire time. I tried talking to her about it gently, asking if everything was okay, and she apologized, saying she'd had bad experiences in the past. I let it go, told myself not to be paranoid. But the next few times she stayed over, I'd catch her glancing at my phone screen if I got a message, and once I'm pretty sure she tried unlocking it while I was in the shower. I didn't say anything then. I should have. The night everything happened started like any other. Vanessa had texted earlier asking to come by. I said I was tired, had some work to catch up on. Her reply was just a thumbs up, cold, but not unusual. I made myself some dinner, watched a game, and went to bed around midnight. I remember locking the door, double-checking it out of habit, and leaving the hallway light on. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to something. Not a sound exactly, but a presence. That feeling when someone else is in the room and you just know. Before I could even turn over, I felt this weight on me and something sharp scrape across my arm. It didn't register right away. My brain was still trying to make sense of the dark shape above me, the smell of her perfume, the sound of her breathing heavy and fast. It was Vanessa. Her face was inches from mine, twisted with something I'd never seen before. Rage, but also hurt, like she was both furious and devastated. She was holding something. Turned out to be a kitchen knife, one of mine. The blade had caught the side of my forearm, not deep but enough to bleed. I didn't yell. I froze. She was whispering something I couldn't make out at first, over and over like a chant. Then it hit me. She kept saying, "You lied. You lied. You said I was safe." I tried talking to her calmly, calling her name, telling her to put it down, but her grip tightened. Her whole body was shaking. I thought I was going to die in my own bed, in my own house by someone I had kissed goodnight just days before. By some insane stroke of luck, Ryan showed up. He sometimes dropped by unannounced if he couldn't sleep, usually just to grab a beer and vent. That night he let himself in with the spare key I kept under the flower pot out front. When he walked in and saw the scene, me pinned down, Vanessa crouched over me with the knife, he didn't hesitate. He yanked her off me so hard that she hit the floor, and the knife clattered away. I scrambled out of bed, blood on my shirt, shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone to call 911. Vanessa didn't even try to run. She just sat there, rocking slightly, mumbling to herself about how I belonged to her, and that I had promised not to leave. The police came fast. So did the paramedics. I ended up with a stitched forearm and a few bruises from the initial struggle, but it could have been so much worse. The scariest part wasn't the attack itself, it was how quiet she became once the cops cuffed her. No screaming, no pleading, just this eerie calm like she had done what she came to do. At the hospital, they said she was placed under psychiatric observation. I didn't press charges. I didn't need to. The doctors said she wasn't in any condition to stand trial. What I didn't expect was the call I got a week later from a nurse who thought I should know that Vanessa had been asking the staff, repeatedly, "Have you seen him? Has he asked about me? Do you know where he is?" I changed the locks that same night, had the spare key spot removed, security cameras installed. I couldn't sleep for days. I'd wake up at every creak, every passing car. I even unplugged my smart speaker because I caught myself whispering into it one night, just to make sure no one else could hear me. Friends kept telling me I'd dodged a bullet, and yeah, maybe I had. But I couldn't stop replaying it. How normal she had seemed. How easily she got through my front door, how close that knife was to something vital. What messed me up the most wasn't that she attacked me. It was that somewhere in her head, she still thought I was hers. I stopped using dating apps completely after that. I deleted my profiles, changed my number, even moved a few months later when my lease was up. The new place is in a busier area, more foot traffic, less isolation. For a while, I couldn't even look people in the eye at the grocery store without wondering what kind of chaos they were hiding behind a smile. I started therapy, which helped more than I expected. I needed someone to remind me that it wasn't my fault for missing the signs, that I wasn't weak for letting her in. But the truth is, I don't fully trust myself anymore. I thought I was a decent judge of character. Turns out, I just got lucky that Ryan showed up when he did. Every now and then, something will pull me back into that night. A scent, a creaky floorboard, a knock at the door when I'm not expecting anyone. I keep a bat under the bed now. Not that I think she'll come back, but because I can't sleep without knowing it's there. I found out later, through mutual contacts, that Vanessa had been hospitalized before, a few years back, for something similar. I don't blame her for being sick. I blame myself for ignoring the red flags. I was so caught up in how exciting it all felt at first that I dismissed my gut. And when you do that, the price can be brutal. People always assume these kinds of stories end in the headlines or on some Netflix documentary. They don't think it happens to the guy next door, the one with a normal job, a dog, a quiet life. But it does. It happened to me. And the scariest part? There were so many moments I could have stopped it. Moments where I felt that discomfort in my stomach, but smiled through it anyway. Because she made me feel seen, and I mistook intensity for connection. Now I know better. Love doesn't look like obsession. And silence in the dark doesn't mean you're alone. I'm not writing this to scare anyone off dating apps or make people paranoid. But if you're reading this, and someone in your life is showing you flashes of something darker, don't ignore it. Listen to that voice in your head telling you something's off. That voice is there for a reason. I brushed mine aside until it had a knife to my throat. Don't wait that long. It started with a match on a dating app I only downloaded out of boredom. His name was Trevor. Profile looked normal. Not overly polished, but not sketchy either. He had a golden retriever in two of his photos and wrote that he liked hiking, documentaries, and people who can hold a real conversation. We texted for less than a day before he asked to meet up. Normally I wait a bit, but he pushed for the next evening, saying he had a packed week ahead. I figured, why not? Public place, early evening. I wasn't thinking too hard about it. We met at a bar that's always busy around dinner time, which made me feel safer. He was polite at first, maybe a little intense, but not in a creepy way, just very talkative. He asked a lot of questions but didn't always wait for the answers before launching into long stories. Most of them were about people he knew in law enforcement. He kept referencing a friend on the force or a buddy in forensics and acted like he had all this behind-the-scenes knowledge. I thought maybe he was trying to impress me, but it came off more like bragging. And some of the things he brought up were weirdly specific. At one point, he casually mentioned how hard it is to track bodies if they're weighted and dumped in moving water. Then he laughed and said, "Sorry, too much true crime, huh?" I laughed politely, but it stuck with me. He brought up some court case where the suspect dismembered someone and claimed self-defense. He even talked about how long it takes for blood to fully soak into carpet before it reaches subflooring. I remember I asked if he worked in that field, and he just grinned and said, "I pay attention to things most people don't." It was meant to sound clever, I guess, but I just felt a bit tense after that. I didn't finish my drink. I told him I had to wake up early and left sooner than planned. He didn't protest, just gave me a hug and said we should definitely do this again soon. The whole way home, I kept replaying bits of what he said. There was something about the way he spoke, not like he was fascinated by crime, but like he was reliving something. I even texted a friend that night saying the guy had weird murdery vibes, half joking, but it lingered. I didn't plan to see him again, and I didn't reply when he texted me later saying he had a great time. The next morning, I opened a news site I usually skim with my coffee. One headline grabbed me right away. Out-of-state tourist found dead behind Riverside Motel. Foul play suspected. What made me freeze was the timestamp. The woman had been murdered the night before my date with Trevor. They estimated the time of death between 8 and 10 p.m. That's the exact window he was texting me non-stop, trying to lock down our meeting spot. I kept scrolling, scanning for details. It said she was around my age, traveling alone, and had been seen leaving a local restaurant just hours before. There was no suspect yet, but police were looking into surveillance footage from nearby businesses. At first, I told myself it was just a weird coincidence. But then I remembered something Trevor said on our date. He mentioned a case where a woman was killed just because she reminded someone of someone else. It felt out of nowhere when he said it, like it didn't fit the rest of what we were talking about. He also mentioned a motel on the edge of town, the same motel from the article. At the time, I thought it was just part of one of his crime stories, but reading that headline made everything snap into sharper focus. My stomach sank. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it, like he'd told the story before. I ended up texting the article to the same friend I'd joked with the night before. I said, "Is it just me, or does this sound a lot like that guy I went out with?" She replied instantly, telling me not to go anywhere alone and to keep my doors locked. I laughed it off, but truthfully, I didn't sleep well that night. Every little noise had me peeking out the window. I even moved a chair in front of the back door, which I'd never done before. I kept trying to tell myself it was all just a weird alignment of events, that I was overreacting, but part of me couldn't let it go. A few days later, I saw his face on the news. Mugshot, name, everything. Trevor had been arrested after someone recognized him near that same motel. Turns out he had a history in another state, something about a sealed juvenile case and prior concerns that were never fully investigated. They weren't saying much yet, but the newscaster called him a person of interest in multiple incidents involving female victims. I just sat there staring at the screen, cold all over. I remember thinking, he was rehearsing. That whole date was him walking through it like a performance, saying the things he wanted to get off his chest, testing how much he could say without being suspected. After that, I called the non-emergency police line. I didn't even know what to say at first, just that I had gone on a date with the guy, and some of the things he said didn't sit right with me. They transferred me to a detective who was already working the case. I gave him everything I remembered. The stories, the comments, even the timing of our messages. He was polite but didn't say much. Just thanked me and said they were collecting as many accounts as possible. I asked if I should be worried, and he paused before saying, If anything else comes to mind, call us. That didn't help me sleep any better. For weeks, I kept expecting someone to knock on my door. Not the cops, him. I imagined waking up in the middle of the night and seeing him through the window, just standing there like it was unfinished business. I kept my phone charged beside me. I started locking the bathroom door when I showered. Every time a car slowed near my house, I froze. Nothing ever happened, but that anxiety didn't fade easily. And the more I replayed that date in my head, the more convinced I became that he'd done that before. Not just the murder, but the confessions, like he couldn't resist telling someone. Eventually, the case faded from the news cycle. They never gave many details, just said he was being held, and that investigators were still building a larger case. I never got a follow-up call. I never heard what happened to him. Some nights I still search his name online, but there's barely anything new. It's like he just disappeared into the system. No trial updates, no sentencing, just a few old articles and that mugshot. The scariest part is how normal he seemed at first. Not charming, but harmless enough to make me say yes. And that's what keeps me uneasy. How close I came without realizing it. I think the worst part is knowing that if I hadn't seen that article the next morning, I probably would have just brushed off the whole night as a weird date. I wouldn't have remembered every word, or looked up his name again, or called the police. I would have gone on with my life thinking I dodged a boring night, not a potential killer. And I guess I'll never know what that night was really about. Whether he was just talking, or if I reminded him of someone. I don't know. All I know is that for reasons I'll never understand, I made it home safe, and someone else didn't. It happened last summer, around the time I had just moved into a new apartment in Denver. I was working remotely in IT consulting, living alone, and to be honest, the quiet had started to get to me. Most of my days were spent staring at screens, fixing back-end issues or helping clients with network stuff. And by the time the sun went down, I felt like a ghost in my own life. I wasn't seeing anyone at the time. My last relationship ended over a year earlier, and I figured it couldn't hurt to try out some of the dating apps again. It felt harmless. Swipe a bit before bed, maybe get a conversation going, see what happened. That's how I matched with Jenna. Her profile looked pretty typical at first. Some mirror selfies, a photo of her at the beach, one with a golden retriever. But what really caught my attention was how quickly she messaged me. Not a bland "hey" either. She sent a joke about my job title and followed it up with a flirty emoji. We started talking, and it escalated fast. She was forward, asking personal questions right away, and her tone was playful, kind of addictive. It was flattering, if I'm being honest. She said she loved nerdy guys with real jobs and sent a mirror selfie in a tank top within the first few hours. By the second day, she was sending photos that were a lot less PG. She said she liked being spontaneous, that she'd just gotten out of a boring relationship and didn't want to waste time. She never asked for anything in return, just kept sending pictures, teasing, and keeping the conversation light. I was suspicious at first, but everything about it felt casual, like we were just two bored people killing time. She even joked about how guys usually ghost when women are too bold. Looking back, the way she framed things, it was clever. She knew exactly how to disarm someone without making it obvious. Then one morning, about 4 days in, I woke up to a message that froze me. It wasn't from Jenna. It came from an unknown number, and it had a screenshot of our chat, everything, including the photos she'd sent and my replies. The message said $2,000, or this goes to your boss, your mom, and everyone on your LinkedIn. You have 24 hours. I sat there staring at it, heart hammering. At first I thought it was a joke. I even laughed. But then I opened my LinkedIn and saw that whoever it was had viewed almost everyone I'd interacted with professionally in the last few months. I remember pacing around my apartment, trying to think straight. I hadn't sent any explicit pictures of myself, but still, My name, face, and conversations were all there. Even though Jenna had been the one sending the risque stuff, it would only take a few screenshots stitched the right way to make me look like the creep. I tried calling the number that had messaged me, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I replied, asking who they were and what they wanted exactly. They just responded with another message. "Clock's ticking. We already know where you work," and attached a photo of my company's building from Google Street View. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't just some bot or random scammer. Someone had dug into my info, mapped out my online presence, and baited me step by step. I went back through the messages with Jenna and noticed that her replies had this weird consistency, like they were scripted. No typos, no real pauses between answers. It didn't feel human anymore. I reverse searched her photos and found them on some Instagram account of a model in Florida, someone who clearly had no idea her pictures were being used like bait. My stomach sank. I felt stupid, so stupid, but mostly I felt watched, like I'd been led down a hallway and the door locked behind me. The next few hours were a blur. I thought about ignoring it, but I couldn't stop picturing my boss getting a message with those screenshots, or my mom. I called a friend of mine, Derek, who works in cybersecurity. Told him everything. He didn't say much at first, just asked for the number and the screenshots. After a while, he called me back and said the number was bouncing off some encrypted VoIP service. "This isn't amateur stuff," he told me. "They're using a setup that masks location and routing. You're not the only one they've done this to." That didn't make me feel any better. I just kept thinking, how many people are they doing this to right now? Then something strange happened. That night, I stayed up watching the number, waiting for more messages, but nothing came. The 24-hour deadline passed. I didn't pay. No leaks, no messages, no follow-up. Just silence. But the next morning, when I stepped out to get coffee, I saw something that stopped me cold. Sitting on the windshield of my car was a small white envelope sealed. No name, no writing. Inside was a single screenshot of my conversation with Jenna, printed, not digital, and a post-it note that said, "We never forget." That's when I realized this wasn't just online. Someone had been close, physically close. I drove around for hours that day, checking my rearview mirror like a maniac. Every white sedan looked like it was following me. I even parked 2 blocks away from my place and walked back on foot, just to see if anyone was watching. Nothing. No one. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been close enough to leave that envelope without making a sound. I kept thinking about all the times I'd left my blinds open, or how easy it was to look up someone's address with just a first name and city. It wasn't paranoia. It was precision. Whoever this was, they were organized, patient, and they wanted me to know it. I went full lockdown mode after that. Wiped all my dating apps, changed every password, bought blackout curtains and a security camera for the hallway outside my door. I filed a police report, but without a clear threat or identifiable suspect, they couldn't do much. The officer I talked to was polite, but dismissive. If nothing happened, and no money was transferred, it might have just been a scare tactic, he said. But it didn't feel like just a scare. It felt like a warning. I even called my boss and came clean, just in case something did leak. To my surprise, he believed me and thanked me for being upfront. That made me feel slightly less powerless, but only slightly. For weeks, nothing else happened. No texts, no photos, no weird envelopes. I started to believe maybe I'd passed some kind of test, like they just wanted to see how far they could push me before I broke or paid. But even now, nearly a year later, I still check my hallway camera every night before I sleep. I still flinch when I get a text from an unknown number, and sometimes, when I walk to my car early in the morning, I can't help but glance around for another envelope. It hasn't shown up again, but that post-it still sits in the back of my drawer, folded in half. We never forget. Neither do I. If you're reading this and thinking it could never happen to you, think again. I thought I was being smart. I never sent anything incriminating. I asked questions, I stayed guarded. And still, I got played. Whoever was behind Jenna didn't need access to my bank account. They got what they wanted. Fear. And the worst part? I'll probably never know who they were, how they found me, or what they were really after. But I changed that day. I don't date online anymore. I keep things private now. I used to think those horror stories online were overblown. Now I know better. I met him on Bumble. His name was Evan, and he seemed harmless enough. Maybe a little stiff, but not creepy or anything at first. We grabbed coffee on a Sunday afternoon, just one of those low-pressure first meets. Honestly, it was pretty forgettable. We had some surface-level conversation, no sparks, and I figured we'd both just ghost quietly. But when he texted the next day asking to see me again, I replied politely, said I didn't feel a strong connection but wished him well. That was it. He didn't answer, and I didn't think twice about it. 3 days later, my phone started blowing up with Instagram notifications. At first, I thought maybe one of my posts had gotten picked up by a local page or something, but it wasn't that. It was all friend requests, and they just kept coming. Different people, all strangers, all from the same city. Most were men, but a few were random women too. None of them messaged me directly, but their profiles looked off. Empty bios, weird usernames, maybe 1 or 2 generic photos. I assumed it was some kind of bot thing and started blocking and deleting without really digging. But it didn't stop. It got worse. I started getting tagged in weird posts, ones I couldn't even see because the accounts were private. But I'd get DMs from people asking, "Is this you?" Or "Why would you post something like that?" One girl sent me a screenshot of a profile that had my face, but it wasn't mine. Same profile picture I'd used before, similar name. But the bio said stuff like cheater, manipulative, and plays with feelings. There were captions under selfies that I'd never written, saying the most messed up things about using people, bragging about sleeping around, stuff that made me feel sick. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. At first I thought maybe it was some kind of mistake. Like maybe someone else with my name was being targeted, or my photos had been scraped for some scam. But then I got a message on Facebook. No profile photo, no name, just a blank account. The message only said, "They all know who you really are." I froze. It didn't sound like a scammer anymore, it felt personal. And then it clicked. Evan. I went back through my texts, just staring at that last message I sent him, the one where I turned him down politely. My hands were actually shaking. I didn't want to believe he'd go this far over one date. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I tried to be rational. I called my best friend, Laura, and walked her through everything. She asked if maybe Evan had some kind of online presence or history, so we started digging. His Instagram was still public. It was full of motivational quotes, gym selfies, and nothing too strange on the surface. But in his tagged photos, we found something. Someone had tagged him in a blurry meme-style image that said, "This girl ruined my life. Be careful who you date." It had my face on it, blurred and filtered, but unmistakably me. The post was from an account that had no name, but it had over 100 likes and comments. People calling me a snake, a user, worse. My heart dropped. I felt physically sick. I reported the post. Laura did too. But by that night, 3 more accounts had popped up. Same kind of thing. Using my photos, twisting old captions, turning them into some fake persona that made me look like a monster. It was like trying to plug holes in a sinking boat. I'd delete one, and 2 more would show up. I even got an email through the contact form on my portfolio site saying, "You shouldn't mess with people's hearts." No name, no reply address. I couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach turned. I started wondering if people from work had seen any of it. My boss follows me on LinkedIn. What if it spread there? I hit my limit the next day when I found out someone had made a fake Tinder profile with my face. One of my old classmates screenshotted it and texted me joking, Didn't know you were back on here?" But it wasn't just a stolen photo. It was a full-on bio saying I was into toying with men and collecting broken hearts. I felt exposed, humiliated, and completely powerless. I decided to message Evan directly. "No drama, just, 'Is this you? Please stop.'" He replied almost immediately. I'll never forget what he said. Just 5 words. "This is what rejection feels like." There was no rage in his tone, no sarcasm. Just calm. Like this was completely justified to him. I didn't know what to say. I think I stared at my screen for a full minute before I blocked him. Then I cried. I locked all my accounts, wiped anything remotely personal, even deleted a few old photos just in case. I felt like I was being hunted, but not physically, digitally. Like I couldn't step outside online without being followed, misrepresented, turned into some character in someone else's messed up revenge fantasy. I wanted to call the police, but what was I supposed to say? A guy I went on one date with is impersonating me online because I didn't like him back. I ended up filing a report anyway. I brought my laptop into the local police station and showed them everything. Screenshots, links, even Evan's message. The officer I spoke to was sympathetic, but honest. "This kind of thing's hard to trace," he said. "Unless he makes a direct threat or crosses into harassment we can document, there's not much we can do." I asked if impersonation wasn't enough. He shrugged. "Depends on the platform. Depends on the intent." I walked out of there feeling smaller than when I went in. Like none of it mattered because it wasn't happening in the real world, just online. But it felt real to me. Every second of it. After a while, the account started to slow down. I don't know if he got bored or if Instagram and Facebook actually took some of the reports seriously. But the damage stuck around. I still have strangers I don't know following me. I still get the occasional weird message or someone tagging me in something that's clearly meant to provoke. I've changed all my handles, set everything to private, and I barely post anything personal anymore. It's like I've been forced into hiding for just existing, for going on one date and not pretending I liked it. What really gets under my skin is that I still don't understand why someone would go to these lengths. Like, I get that rejection stings, but to build an entire campaign around ruining someone's life over it, that's another level. And the way he said it, "This is what rejection feels like," it wasn't angry, it was methodical, like he'd done it before, or planned it out just in case. That part still messes with me, because if someone can do this calmly without even trying to hide it, what else are they capable of? It's been over a year now. Sometimes I still check the tags on my photos just to be sure nothing new is circulating. It's quiet, for now. But every time I get a new follower request, I pause. Every time a blank account views my stories, I wonder if it's him again. I'll never really know, and maybe that's the worst part. Not that it happened, but that it could happen again. And the person behind it might just be watching, waiting, and smiling like it was never a big deal in the first place. I run a small freelance web design business out of my apartment in Tempe, Arizona. At the time this happened, I was about 4 years in, finally getting a steady stream of clients, mostly small businesses, some word-of-mouth referrals, nothing fancy. I lived alone, worked from home, and mostly kept to myself. I wasn't really putting myself out there, socially or romantically, until a friend convinced me to download a dating app. That's where I met Erin. She was sharp, had this sarcastic wit I liked, and we messaged constantly for about 2 weeks before meeting in person. The first few dates were good, easy actually, but there was a certain intensity to her, like she got too serious, too fast. I tried to pull back gently, but Erin didn't take it well. We'd only been seeing each other for about a month when I ended it. There wasn't any big fight. I told her I didn't feel we were compatible long-term, and she barely said anything. Just stared at me. I remember thinking she took it better than I expected, but I was relieved she didn't make a scene. A week later, I started getting fewer inquiries. Clients who had booked me suddenly ghosted. Then came an email from a potential client, attaching a link to a review. 1-star, long paragraph accusing me of inappropriate messages during a project. The name attached to it was familiar, someone I'd worked with a year ago. But when I reached out to that actual client, she told me she hadn't posted anything and hadn't needed web help in ages. Over the next few days, more fake reviews popped up. Different names, same tone. The wording always had the same rhythm: emotional, wounded, sometimes borderline threatening. I realized they were coming from burner accounts using real names of my former clients. One even mentioned specific phrases I'd used in actual emails, which freaked me out. That's when I started thinking about Erin. She had access to my social media, probably saw my testimonials, my public portfolio. I'd never talked about clients in much detail, but it wouldn't take much to guess who was who. I couldn't prove it yet, but the timing lined up too well to ignore. She went silent right after the last fake review showed up. Her number stopped working. Her Instagram was suddenly private. I filed a report with the site admin of the review platforms and even tried talking to a lawyer, but without hard proof or admission, there wasn't much anyone could do. So I tried messaging Erin one last time, just to ask if we could talk face-to-face, clear the air, end whatever this was. I didn't expect a reply, but that night, she sent a short message from a new number. "You can come over, but don't make me regret it." It felt more like a dare than an invitation, but I went anyway. I don't know what I thought would happen. Closure? An apology? I parked outside her complex and just sat there for a minute, staring at her second-floor apartment, wondering why the lights were all off. The door was unlocked when I got there. That should have been my first sign to turn around. I stood there for a second, hand on the knob, listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the AC and the faint buzz of a nearby streetlight through the window blinds. I stepped inside and called her name, quietly at first, then a little louder. No answer. The place looked lived in, but weirdly sterile. No clutter, no pictures, not even shoes by the door. Just a couch, a coffee table, and a lamp turned on in the far corner, casting a dim yellow light that made everything feel flat and off-kilter. I took another step, and the door clicked shut behind me. That's when I saw her. Erin stood in the hallway near the bedroom, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. She didn't smile, didn't blink, just watched me. I said her name again like an idiot and told her I wasn't there to fight. She didn't move. "You think you can just walk away?" she said, like we were picking up a conversation I'd never been part of. Her voice was low, steady. No yelling, no tears, just cold. She took a slow step forward. I backed up, raising my hand slightly, trying to diffuse whatever this was turning into. Then I noticed something behind her, on the hallway floor. A box cutter, just lying there like it had been dropped or maybe placed on purpose. She stepped forward again and I finally snapped out of it. I turned and reached for the door, but it was stuck, not locked, jammed. Before I could pull harder, I felt her hand grab the back of my jacket. We struggled. She didn't scream or curse, just kept repeating, "You shouldn't have lied." I managed to shove her back hard enough to make her stumble into the hallway wall. I yanked the door open and ran, not looking back. I didn't stop until I was back in my car, hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before getting the engine started. I called the cops from a gas station down the road. I told them everything. I thought it was over. When the police arrived at her apartment, she was gone. No sign of her, no suitcase missing, nothing broken. Just a weirdly empty-feeling place that looked like someone had been packing in a rush and then changed their mind. She never showed up to any of the addresses tied to her name, and her online accounts disappeared one by one over the next week. They put out a warrant, but nothing came of it. Eventually, the case just went quiet. I tried getting my reviews cleared, even sent written statements to the platforms. Some were removed, others weren't. I lost 3 major clients that month alone, and even now, years later, I still find myself checking every unknown number that texts me. Every blocked caller makes my heart jump. I changed all my passwords, wiped my social media, and started using a virtual number for work inquiries. I even installed a camera at my apartment door, not because I thought she'd come back, but because I couldn't trust myself to know when something was truly over. I'd never had anything like this happen to me before. I wasn't some naive kid, and still, I got pulled into a situation that spiraled faster than I could control. Sometimes I wonder if she had done this to someone else before me. The way she played it all out, using real names, mimicking review patterns, knowing just how much to say without crossing a legal line. It felt rehearsed. I wish I could say there was a moment when I felt things were safe again, but that hasn't really happened. A few months later, someone buzzed my apartment from the gate downstairs and didn't say anything. No name, no response. Just silence. I waited by the door with a baseball bat until the sound stopped. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe it was her, just reminding me she could still find me if she wanted to. The police never called back with updates. I stopped asking. My business slowly recovered, but the way I interact with people changed completely. I vet every new client, do background checks if anything feels even slightly weird. I've turned down jobs just because someone typed too much like her. The hardest part to explain to people is how subtle it all was at first. It didn't start with a scream or a threat. It started with silence, with things just disappearing. And by the time I realized what was happening, she was already too far into my life to undo it cleanly. I replay that night in her apartment more than I should, not just because it scared me, but because of how calm she was. Like she wasn't angry, just finishing a task. Sometimes I dream about it. In the dreams, I don't make it out. I moved last year. New city, new number, new apartment. I've met someone since, but I haven't told her the full story. Just that I had a bad experience once with someone from an app. I still check court records every now and then just to see if her name pops up somewhere. It hasn't. She vanished. But I don't think she's gone. People like that don't stop, they just pause. I had just gotten out of a long, messy relationship when I matched with this guy named Travis on a dating app. He had this friendly, rugged vibe, like he actually chopped wood and drank coffee out of metal mugs, not just for the aesthetic. He messaged me first, and from the start, our conversations were easy. He was quick with jokes, but also asked about my life like he genuinely wanted to know. We met for coffee in town a couple of times, then dinner. Nothing weird, no red flags. He was charming, but not in an over-the-top way, more like someone comfortable in silence. I remember thinking, finally, someone who doesn't talk like a salesman. The fourth time we hung out, he brought up the idea of spending a weekend at his family's cabin. He said it was up in the woods about 2 hours out, no Wi-Fi, no cell signal. A total disconnect, as he put it. I hesitated. I mean, yeah, it's the kind of thing you hear about in documentaries when things go wrong. But he read the look on my face and laughed. "You can drive separately if it makes you feel better," he offered. That small gesture made me trust him more. So I said yes. The plan was I'd follow him in my car after work on Friday. Simple. The drive up was beautiful, actually. We took winding back roads past thick pine trees and small lakes that looked like glass. As we climbed higher, my signal dropped bar by bar until it was just gone. I remember trying to send my sister a quick "made it" text, but it never went through. The cabin came into view just as the sun was dipping low, one of those dark wood places with a wide porch and a rusted old swing hanging off the side. No other houses, no cars, just the sound of wind and creaking branches. It felt quiet in a way that was both peaceful and too quiet. Travis came out to greet me with this big smile and a beer already in his hand. He helped me with my bag, showed me around the place. The kitchen had one of those ancient fridges that hums loud, and the living room smelled like old cedar. Then he said, kind of casually, "Let me take your phone." You won't get any signal up here anyway, and it's nice to actually be present, you know? I laughed and half-joked, "That's what all the serial killers say." But he smiled and held out his hand. I hesitated for a second longer than I probably should have, then handed it over. That night we made dinner together, canned chili, garlic toast, and a bottle of red wine he'd brought from the city. The fire crackled low while we ate, and the way the light danced across the wooden walls made the place feel warm, almost romantic. After dinner, we sat out on the porch. The stars out there were unreal. No light pollution, no hum of traffic, just a black sky scattered with a million tiny lights. I remember thinking, maybe this is what people mean when they say, off the grid, that sweet, still kind of freedom. I let myself relax. I told myself not to be paranoid. The next morning, Travis got up before me and was already outside chopping wood. I watched from the small window in the bedroom, the glass cold to the touch. He looked focused, like almost too focused. I brushed it off and got dressed. While he cooked breakfast, I wandered around the cabin a bit more. It wasn't that big, just one bedroom, one bathroom, and a narrow hallway with a back door that led into the trees. I remember noticing a row of hooks behind the door with empty coats, 4 of them, all women's, different styles. That detail stuck with me, like a note out of tune in an otherwise normal song. I asked him about them later. He said they belonged to his mom and sisters. I didn't push. Later that day, he suggested we go on a short hike behind the cabin. I said sure, and we followed a barely there path through the trees for maybe half an hour until we got to this tiny stream. He skipped rocks across it like a kid, totally relaxed. At one point, he said, "This is the best part of the whole place. Most people never find it." Something about how he said most people made me pause. I asked, "How many people have you brought up here?" He just smirked and said, "Not many. You're different." I smiled, but my stomach tightened a little. Not fear exactly, more like a slow, crawling alertness. When we got back, Travis went to start dinner, and I said I was going to grab a hoodie from my bag. I didn't go to my room, though. I went out the back door and followed the curve of the cabin, looking for signal. That's when I noticed it. A shed tucked behind the trees maybe 20 feet from the back porch. It was small and metal, with one of those heavy padlocks. I swear it hadn't been there yesterday, or maybe I just didn't see it. I glanced toward the house. He was still inside. Something told me not to wait. I circled the shed, and behind it, under some loose boards and pine needles, I found a toolbox with the latch rusted halfway open. I knelt down to open it, expecting tools, but instead inside was a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it. It was a missing person flyer, a woman, brown hair, smiling. Her name was Carly, and she looked familiar. I stood there frozen, staring at the flyer. The photo had been taken in daylight, probably from social media. Carly in a denim jacket, smiling wide, just like someone you'd pass at a grocery store. I scanned the details beneath her picture. Last seen in the vicinity of Echo Ridge, possibly headed toward secluded trails with an unidentified male companion. My pulse was pounding in my ears. Echo Ridge. That was the name of the hiking trail Travis had pointed at during our walk, said it was too steep to bother with. I looked back at the cabin. Travis wasn't at the window, but I could hear the screen door creak open. I shoved the flyer into my hoodie pocket and brushed pine needles over the toolbox again, fast, before stepping out casually from the side of the shed. At dinner, I barely spoke. I kept looking at Travis like I'd never really seen him before. He was relaxed, drinking wine again, talking about how we should come up during the winter. "It gets even quieter when it snows," he said. My throat felt dry. I smiled where I had to, nodded when he paused, but my head was spinning. How many women had he brought here? Why was that flyer hidden? And the coats? Suddenly they made sense. All those little things I'd brushed off, they weren't small. I excused myself early, said I was tired from the hike, and locked the bedroom door behind me with shaking hands. I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the way he looked at me earlier that day, the tone in his voice when he said I was different. Before sunrise, I slipped out of bed and quietly unlatched the window. I had memorized every creaky board in that place during the night, so I knew which ones to avoid. I stuffed the flyer in my waistband, climbed out the window, and made a wide arc around the house to where my car was parked. My hands were trembling so badly I dropped the keys trying to unlock the door. I kept glancing over my shoulder like I'd see him standing there with that damn smirk. The second the engine turned over, I floored it. I didn't look back once. No traffic, no lights. Just the dirt road stretching out ahead like salvation. My signal came back about 20 minutes later, and the first thing I did was call 911. I told them everything about the shed, the flyer, the coats, his name. They took it seriously. Days later, I got a call from a detective. They'd found the shed. It was locked from the outside, like I said. Inside were personal items, jewelry, makeup bags, a few journals, all belonging to missing women, including Carly. Travis had vanished, left the cabin sometime before they got there. The flyer I found ended up being a copy of one pulled from a bulletin board 2 counties over. I still don't know how close I came to disappearing like the rest, but I do know one thing. I trusted my gut just in time. If you're reading this because someone charming invited you to go off the grid, don't go. I really don't know what the hell to make of what happened that night. I keep going over everything in my head, trying to find the moment where I should have noticed something, done something different, but it all felt so normal at first. It started at a bar near my place in Portland. I was out with 2 co-workers just killing time after a long week. The bar wasn't even that crowded. At one point I noticed this woman looking at me from across the room. She had long, dark red hair, kind of striking actually, and was sipping something clear, maybe a vodka soda. Eventually she walked over and tried to strike up a conversation. She was forward, flirty, and honestly, a little intense. When I told her I wasn't interested, she laughed like I was joking. I said it again, more direct. She didn't take it well. She didn't make a scene or yell or anything like that, but her expression shifted so fast it actually unsettled me. It was like someone had flipped a switch. She looked me up and down one last time, muttered something I didn't catch, and just walked away. I figured that was the end of it. My friends joked about it for a bit, but we moved on with the night. I went home, didn't think about her again. That was Friday. By Monday, I matched with someone on Hinge. Different girl entirely, or so I thought. Blonde, outdoorsy looking, all these hiking pics and golden retrievers in the background. Seemed pretty normal. She messaged first, and something about her tone felt weirdly familiar. Too confident, kind of pushy. But I didn't make the connection at first. The conversation didn't last long. She asked if I wanted to meet up that night, and I said I wasn't free. She asked about the next night. I told her I was busy all week, then she replied, "You weren't too busy Friday night at Kelly's." That hit me like a truck. That's when it clicked. The photos were fake, obviously. But the person behind the account? That had to be the woman from the bar. I unmatched immediately, blocked the profile, and reported it. The whole thing left me on edge. But again, I told myself she was probably just trying to mess with me. A little creepy, yeah, but not dangerous. I didn't feel like I had enough to go to the police over. It just felt like weird internet behavior. That week, though, I started noticing little things. Seeing her, well, I wasn't even sure it was her, on the other side of the street while I was walking to work. Once I thought I saw her inside the grocery store I go to, near the back by the frozen section. Always just for a second, and always gone before I could really tell. But it wasn't until she showed up outside my building that I realized this wasn't just some online joke gone too far. It was a Thursday night, raining hard, and I spotted her standing across the street. No umbrella, no jacket, just standing there watching my building. She didn't move. She didn't wave. Nothing. I didn't even go outside. I watched from behind my blinds, and eventually she walked away. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept glancing at the window like some part of me expected her to still be there. I even dragged my desk chair up against the door just in case. The next day, I called the leasing office and asked if there was a way to check security footage or see if anyone had reported someone loitering. They said there weren't any outdoor cameras facing the street, only the entrances. Of course, I didn't tell them why I was asking. I felt dumb, honestly. What was I supposed to say? A woman I rejected at a bar might be stalking me. It sounded paranoid. But that weekend, things escalated fast. I went out for coffee Saturday morning, and when I came back, there was a sticky note on my front door. No envelope, no name. It just said, "You look tired today." I stood there staring at it for way too long. I looked around the hallway. Nothing. Dead quiet. I live in a small building, just 8 units, and most people keep to themselves. I don't even think half of them are home during the day. I checked with my downstairs neighbor, an older guy named Ron, and asked if he saw anyone unusual come in or out. He said no, just a delivery guy around noon, but nothing else. I didn't leave my apartment again that day. I kept the blinds closed, didn't turn on any lights once the sun went down. I just sat in my living room, scrolling through news and forums and reading about stalking cases. I kept checking the peephole. Every creak in the building made me flinch. I didn't feel safe in my own place anymore. Sunday night is when everything boiled over. I fell asleep around midnight, finally, after hours of laying there trying to stay calm. I don't know how long I was out. Could have been 30 minutes, could have been 2 hours, but something woke me up. A presence. I didn't hear a noise, I didn't dream anything, I just opened my eyes, and she was there. At the foot of my bed, just standing, not saying anything, not moving. She wasn't wearing the red lipstick from the bar or the fake blonde wig from the app. It was her. Same red hair, pale face, and eyes that didn't blink. I froze. I couldn't even speak at first. I thought I was dreaming, but the air in the room was too real, too heavy. When I finally sat up and shouted, she lunged, no hesitation. Just full-on screamed something I couldn't even understand and went for me. I kicked the side table trying to get away, and my lamp crashed to the ground. It was chaos. Sheets flying, me scrambling for the door. I managed to shove her back just enough to bolt out of the bedroom and slam the door behind me. I didn't even stop to put on shoes. I ran out of my apartment barefoot and pounded on my neighbor Ron's door like a maniac. He opened up half asleep, and when he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. He called the cops right away. I just kept saying, "She's in my room," over and over like a broken record. The cops got there fast, less than 10 minutes, I think. It felt like forever. 2 officers went into my apartment with their weapons drawn while I waited outside with Ron. I was shaking so bad I could barely hold the blanket he gave me. They searched the entire place, every room, every closet, under the bed. Nothing, they didn't find anyone. Not a single sign she'd ever been there. But the bedroom lamp was shattered, the sheets were on the floor, and the side table was flipped. I didn't imagine it. One of the officers asked me if I'd been drinking or taking anything. I hadn't. I tried to explain who she was, what had been happening, but I could tell they thought I was just freaked out over a bad dream or something. They took a basic report, told me to go stay with someone if I didn't feel safe, and said they'd do a patrol drive-by for a few nights. That was it. No forced entry, no broken locks. The front door had still been locked from the inside. I checked it myself. And yeah, I know how insane that sounds. How could she be there and then just vanish? I've gone through every possible explanation 100 times. Sleep paralysis? No. I've had that before. This wasn't that. I moved out 3 weeks later, broke the lease, didn't care about the fee. I couldn't sleep in that room again. Every night after that, I woke up imagining her standing there again, watching, waiting for me to open my eyes. I never heard from her again. No more fake profiles, no more notes. No more sightings, it just stopped. Like none of it ever happened, but I know it did. I think that's what messes with me the most. how it all escalated so fast, and then suddenly she was just gone. I check my locks every night now, twice. I don't use dating apps anymore, and I don't go to that bar. Honestly, I barely go out at all. It's like some part of me is still expecting to see her again, in a crowd or walking past a window. And if I do, I don't think I'd run this time. I think I'd freeze. I never even knew her name, not her real one. I think about that a lot. I replay everything from that night. What if I hadn't said anything at the bar? What if I had just left early? But deep down, I don't think any of that would have mattered. I think she made up her mind the second I told her no. And that's the part that still haunts me. That someone can slip into your life, decide they want you, and no matter how clear you make it that you don't want them, they don't care. They'll just keep finding ways in. Until one day, they're standing at the foot of your bed waiting for you to wake up,